Please stand and pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain to stand for the sick and handicapped and departure of our community, also the military. Thank you.
Everyone, can everyone hear me, Joe?
I can hear you.
Okay, I order business. I apologize for attending this. I had a business call me out of town, but I'd just like to, first of all, take a roll call.
Mr. Henderson,
Here, via Zoom.
Mr. Petroselli,
Yeah.
Mr. Gallarducci,
Here.
Mr. Colosimo,
Here.
He's there.
Mr. Verducci,
Zoom it, I'm here.
Mrs. Schneider,
Here.
Mr. Shashansky,
Here.
Mayor Copeland,
Here.
Solicitor McDermott,
Here.
Engineer Brett,
Here.
I'm Joe Power, Chief King,
Here.
Assistant Chief Macklin,
Here.
and Director Miller.
Sorry, I gotta go. Can I have,
Momentarily present.
can I have the piece? Right. Oh.
Thanks, Joe. Hey, Joe, before we go to public comment, Joe, I just wanted to open up by taking a moment to thank the police, and fire, EMS, and Public Works for their response to the flood this past week. And once again, they've gone out of their way to prove that they put the safety of others before themselves. And we are grateful for the work that they do. Also wanted to thank publicly Senator Devin Robinson for showing so much care and his visibility during the event. We appreciated that. Thanks also to Joe Power and Mike Coleman. He was really the first test that we had of emergency management response, and collectively, you guys did a great job, and things flowed very efficiently. So, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the neighboring communities that helped to pitch in and with the cleanup as well. They're not going to notice, and greatly appreciate their efforts. I'll turn it over to you for your public comment.
Mr. DeBrey. Mr. Blanchard.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Someone asked me, what's new? And I thought, well, there was a flood on Baldwin Street. But then I realized that's not particularly new. As I was on Baldwin Street, someone said, we have to go to Upper St. Clair, get them to stop. That's not new either. We've been saying that for a long, long time. I remember 8 years ago, there was a flood. There was a flood 3 years ago. These are not new. What is new is the trash rack. And we will find out from the engineer whether or not he thought it made a difference. I don't know, I'm not an engineer. But that is new. That's thanks to some dedicated hard work. Hard work by the people that are sitting here and on Zoom. Hard work by the people that came before them. I know that Mr. William Calusi, while he was on council, pushed for that issue, for that trash rack for a long time. And he pushed hard, and it took a lot of work. It's not easy. It's not at all easy. And so, I thank you. And as Mr. Henderson said, and all of the people that helped to mitigate the issues of that day a few days ago. Fortunately, it was not as bad as it has been. But I would encourage us all to redouble our efforts. I do not speak to you. I speak to myself as much. okay? We can and we should do more. We can and we should do better. The problem can be solved, but it must be solved here. It is Bridgeville that resides at the center of the flooding and the traffic issues that are McLaughlin Run. Without our leadership, our region cannot resolve the problem, and our residents will continue to suffer from those problems. And with that, I look forward to our future progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Mr. Tom Beam, please.
Hey folks, I think we all know, I know
Yes.
a lot of you now, Lydia and that. First of all, I'd like to say thank you, and I want to start thanking, those of you who know me pretty well now know that I kind of have a usual approach, and let's start with the positives. I'd like to thank everyone who was down there, from the chief to the fire department, to everyone in Public Works, and those of you, I know I saw a lot of those faces down there individually. Though it wasn't as bad as before, I kind of take exception. It still wasn't good. Some were more at risk than others. But what went well, and you all need to be applauded for, is unless something was different, I didn't hear of a backflow preventer that failed. It was initiated prior to Joe's coming on board with Lori, and I commend that because I was witness to it. It worked better than a couple people who are in my family who are engineers were actually astounded at how well they worked. At the deepest point of the water, which as you well know is my wife's apartment building. The wall at the end of Janeway held up. It didn't breach. And we'll come back to that because the next points will be sort of things of improvements. The trash racks worked. The trash racks were excellent. But I think out of all this, I know personally, we learned some things that we need to address to tighten up. We held back 5 feet of water, 1 inch of water got into our buildings. I know what that cost. I know how it was engineered. I know an 18-year-old kid engineered them. With that, I've identified about 5 things we need to address immediately to make ours tighter. And I'm not a fool. Mother Nature's going to win this battle someday again. However, with that being said, the trash racks do have some room for improvement. Nick and I talked about it actually that night. DJ and I talked about it as well. There needs to be balusters along the park because the creek finds its way around the current balusters, especially when they're clogged. Then the debris is going to follow suit. We had a couple 30, would you say 30-some foot pieces of tree that we pulled out of the creek that night. I know people who, I'm trying to look at anyone who was around there to verify this. I know they were, as you all know, we have plenty of video evidence to support this.
Tom, was that possibly that tree after the trash rack or not? I don't know.
There were three of them that came down,
Okay.
and we got them out there. I mean, Joe saw what it took to get them out of there. I fortunately happened to have had a friend who was on site at another property of ours who brought an excavator down, and he yanked them. It's a good thing he did because at 1 o'clock in the morning, the second round came down. With it came 2 other large trees that would have been able to flood. And we would have been over Bower Hill Road long after everyone had gone home. I can promise you that. So the trash racks could be improved upon. The current ones could be raised. I don't know the politics of that. I know you've all fought very hard to get that to happen. But in my opinion, they should be the height of Bower Hill Road, not the height of the ballpark. Because the fear is, whether it goes around them or whether the water comes up high enough to get the debris over them, once it comes down, Bower Hill Bridge is done. It was almost done last Wednesday night. So that is frankly, a huge concern of mine. But that sort of was the positives. I think that all went pretty well. Stuff that I think we could improve upon is You know, I've spoken to Ash at the rail yard, Gail at the Owls Club. We have some properties that you're waiting for this mysterious FEMA money to come take. And look, you all know more than I know about it. I just know I tried to buy one. The Owls have tried to buy another. Ash just told me a little while ago he's on his way here if he makes it. He was going to try to buy one of the third ones. Well, we don't even know what the numbers were that we were competing against. But it would have been worth it for a parking lot just for beer warehouse. I think Ash felt the same way. I know the Owls felt the same way. So it's 3 years and 20 days later, and we're still standing here. But the worst part is we have dilapidated properties that are now fire hazard. They're a public works hazard. And now that's where a couple of the breaches came in the current creek wall. I'm not worried about looking to the creek for where the water's coming from. I'm watching Baldwin Street because that's where it came from the last time. Now, if those walls hadn't have breached, would it have gotten over Janeway? It was lapping over it. Most likely, I would say it probably would have come over. I don't know to what degree, but the bulk of that water all came down from breaches further up Baldwin. And it's properties that nobody's going to do a darn thing with. You know, 3 years ago, I suggested we take those coffin block and run them all the way up the creek bed. If they had been done, you wouldn't have lost property and breaching from last Wednesday. And it's my opinion that the creek would have stayed in its banks. For the most part, it definitely would have stayed in its banks. It's 3 years later. All progress has been good. But we can do other little things immediately to get this a lot safer. That being said, I also have a concern, and Ash and I spoke about this today. You know, we're starting to become a little bit of a blighted area here. I didn't get a tax break, Jenny didn't get a tax break, I'm sure. The rail yard, we put a lot of money in improvements, and nobody speaks higher of this community than I do. I tell anyone who will listen, it's the greatest community I have a business in, and we have them in 5. It is really a pleasure to be a part of this, albeit from this one thing that needs to be addressed. In light of all this, I mean, we're looking at the fact that if we wanted to do something with our properties, who the heck's going to buy it? I mean, we talked about 50-year flood, 100-year flood. We're talking about every 6 weeks. And I love it because I have family members that are like, they don't even know we flooded. Well, we're the first ones to flood. And we're the last ones to get cleaned up. That's fine, I accept that. I think the turnout of people we had down there the other night is evidence of that. And I can't do any more to keep it out of my own property. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting there saying, oh, please, someone come solve my problem. I'm all willing to help with it, but I can't solve other people's property problems. Without getting arrested probably by Chad. And I really would like to know why we don't have a contractor on retainer to clean out these problem sites in the creek when it's occurring. I had somebody down there within 45 minutes of the phone call. Albeit, I knew who to call and when to get them there. You either need to find a way to get the right piece of equipment. Your public works doesn't have the right piece of equipment to do this job. You need an excavator with a thumb. I don't know how you're cleaning the trash racks, but the cost of the piece of equipment over the past 3 years, probably is as much as you've been paying these borough workers to frankly do a job that they're all at risk of an injury, a severe injury. So I just don't understand why you don't have one or the other. I will offer up to you that, I mean, my friend did give me a bill. I pleaded with him to give me a bill. I mainly asked him to give me a bill to make a point as to the minimal cost it would be to have someone on retainer with the right equipment to show up while it's happening, not to give some excuse that, oh, there's too much water in the creek, we can't go do it. I go in with a pickup truck and a chain not the 3 years ago. A little smarter than that 3 years later. There was the right piece of equipment. It's not that much. If you can't afford to have the equipment, then why don't you have someone on retainer, because you still need to clean the trash racks anyways. And I think you'd find if you put it out to bid, someone like this guy is most reasonable. And then, sorry, but I knew if I didn't write this all down, I would never remember it all. We talked about what people in the community have done, and neighbors, et cetera. If I'm wrong, and this piece of property does not reside in the borough of Bridgeville, stop me right here, but there is someone up on McLaughlin Run Road who I think sells firewood. It's right on the corner, up past the second bridge, by where the little oasis used to be. Is that in the confines of Bridgeville Borough, or is that actually on the St. Clair side?
No, it's Bridgeville.
Well, I'd like to know who has the lack of respect for their neighbors to allow firewood to be beside a creek where we're trying to keep stuff out, and as Pat pointed out, everyone's all too ready to point their fingers upstream when we have someone inside these own confines. And if they're not going to do it on their own, then put an ordinance in place that you're not allowed to do that on this property, and make the fine severe enough that it gets their damn attention. There was plenty of pieces of cut firewood that came down that creek. I'm not saying they plugged it, but they didn't help matters. And had we not got the bigger pieces out, they certainly aren't the type of pieces that make for easy flow. And then the only other question I really had for you all is, you know, at this point, Jenny and I would like to know who to direct some written correspondence to take action about. Because I stood up on that bridge and I don't know who was around me, but I can't do this much longer. I would do anything for anyone down here in this community. All I have to do is ask. But I can't hold Mother Nature back any more than I just did. That's about as good as we get. So I'd just like to know, who do we address these concerns so that they're codified? Because it's really kind of unfair for me. Jill and I have had some heated conversations over the past year about the new, you know, ingress and egress that you're going to put at the end of Janeway. It's designed to occur in height. We talked about this right when you came on board. It was my opinion that it should be higher, about 3 feet higher. I highly doubt that it's going to be high enough. Again, we almost weren't high enough last Wednesday. And I would like to formally put these things out to someone, because saying that I talked about it kind of doesn't hold much weight later on down the road.
Your comments will be in the record tonight.
Okay. And if there's anything else that anyone else obviously needs,
Well, if you're gonna put it in writing, I'd send it to Joe and then copy all council, just so you can put it on record.
yeah, it's just time, guys. You know, it's
All right,
time.
well-
I'll try to be constructive about it. I don't want to be someone who's just bitching and moaning, quite frankly. If you excuse the language. But it's time. The same 10 properties are getting wiped out every single time.
Well, one thing, Mr. Beams, that I can tell you that on our budget time, which only another month, we already discussing where we're looking for a bigger equipment so we can clean the trash wreck from the road, but we can go obvious on the wet land, you know. So we discussed that for the budget. Matter of fact, the manager already got some prices. And the rest, it's all engineer work. We got it. Sooner or later, we must make a motion, not tonight, but sooner or later, we gotta make a motion to put all these things in prospect and our engineering for quite a bit of work he's talking about. The trash wreck, we know very well, all of us know that it needs improvement. Every one of us here knows that. Height, size, we know that. And then again, that we have to go through FEMA again, but it has to be done.
Well,
We
I
have to
think-
start the wheels
I
going.
think we needed to start somewhere.
Thank you.
And I think we did that. I think it's a good job, and now it's time to look back and say, all right, we had a pretty significant storm. What went right, what went wrong? All right, how can we make more of those wrong items to what happened right? So, I mean, I wrote every single one of them, and as far as the trash, can you lift those? That obviously we're gonna ask the engineer, but, you know, number one, I would think they're in there for good, but I don't know those different things. But what else could we do? Could we make it wider to be able to stop more things and all those things? But those are the things that now that it's happened, all right, we need to relook at it and say, all right, how can we improve it?
And I'm right there with you. I mean, I know we're putting the scrutiny aside to everything that I did, and it worked. But I also see how close we came to failing. You and I were actually standing there, I think I had told you, I don't think we could hold back two more inches of water. It was by the grace of God. And the fact that the trash racks do give rise to a potential other bigger problem should they fail. Now, you guys fought everyone under the sun just to get them to exist. So that's a great start. And again, I want to applaud the things that were positive, but I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the things that need addressed, and frankly, the things that are just flat out, why aren't we doing this? And I think there needs to be a sense of urgency and a ticker put on it. Because, look, I race to them. If I leave it to my kid, he'll engineer pieces for a race car and it'll never see the racetrack. We don't have the luxury of this. That's a fancy. This isn't a fancy. This could have been bad. And with those walls breached, the problem's coming 2 feet sooner right now. You know, at least can we get concrete blocks along those breaches to keep this doggone thing in the banks. It's a Band-Aid. But I'll take a Band-Aid right now until someone gets around with the 3O silk for a suture. That's all. I mean, I'm always there to try to help with the solution because I don't believe I'm bringing a problem without trying to think of a way to solve it.
No, you don't agree.
All right, guys, thank you.
It's reality.
Take it down.
You know, Mike?
Quick question.
Yeah.
And you know, the ballpark was a significant amount of money to do that project, but a lot of that was doing the dirt and lowering the field. I mean, the actual boulders that go in the creek, I mean, are they expensive? It's,
Yeah, I mean, it was not a cheap project.
right.
One of the issues you have, and not to dive too deep into the weeds, but the reason it took so long to get them is
It's permits.
Permits, and it impacts the hydraulics of the actual
Yeah.
flow of water. It slows it down. So the height of them, there's magic there, because if you make them 2 foot higher, when the debris gets caught up and it backs up the stream, it floods the properties adjacent. Right now, it gets within 6 inches, and we couldn't change that. So there's a hydraulic model of everything coming downstream. The storm event that you experienced, Burr itself did not experience a lot of rain on a magnitude scale. I think as everybody realizes, it all happened upstream. It was on the scale of 200-year event. The year thing, everybody always zones in on that. Well, this has happened 5 times in 200 years. That's just an engineering terminology. It could be equivalent to how many inches of rain came down in 1 hour. And it was 3 inches in an hour is what was put out. It's not official yet. There'll be something official that comes out probably in the next month that'll document that, what happened upstream of Bridgeville. But if you have that big wall of water coming down and the trash rack was higher or wider, what happens upstream is it pushes it out, or it may push it over the banks of the park and then wipe out the park again. Because there's too much water that can't get past. Now, we did talk to Joe today. I'm going to take a look at the models built for everything that happens in the borough. We do have a draft report. Let's give everybody a magnitude of scale. Something that's going to go to the planning commission, but I think we talked a year and a half ago. My gut feeling was this is a $20 million problem. This is a $20 million problem. Can it be addressed? Yes. Does the wall probably need to be higher as it comes through and the edge is raised? Yes. The solution that's going to be recommended in the end is not Jersey barriers, not jumbo block, but it's got to be a levee wall that's going to be soldier beam lagging, concrete that doesn't go over time. Doesn't get washed out. It's going to be a permanent structure, kind of like these trash racks. This trash rack had a tremendous amount of weight behind it with this wall of water. It built up with debris, 6, 8, 10 foot high, all pushing behind it, but they stayed. They're filled with concrete. They're embedded. Now, that's not saying if we get the 500-year event and it comes down and it starts eroding, it may rip them out because there's just too much weight there. And that's why DEP doesn't like them. The engineers don't like them, for the most part, because it could create a problem. Now, they're structural and embedded, it's mass concrete. But if you make them wider, now that design changes. Now there's more weight, because now instead of the width that we have, it's twice that width and then it's twice the weight. It will force the water towards the park, but the magic is in this, it has to bypass at some point. When that rain event comes, it has to get around and back into the stream. And right now you're kicking it out. I went up and looked at the debris field. It matches pretty close to what the DEP's doing. I mean, it's spread out, it's over about 100 feet. It's at the high end. There was sticks and debris and things like that that washed down and got caught in a trash rack. But the rest of the stuff that creates a problem in the flood is you get all those rocks that come down. It dropped those where the design says it, backed it up so the water come down and hit it, kicked into the park, and then it spread it out everywhere. And it spread out about 16 inches thick roughly at the top end, and then it dissipated down into the park. So we would want to be very methodical on this. I'm not saying don't look at it, definitely do. Let's look and see what one more does, see what it does in the model, and then two, because there's a distance between them two. You notice they're very systematic on how they're put in place, and just see what it does. This is the design that everybody talked about for years, and when we finally did get the permit, we made 2 tweaks to it to get it, and that was because, I think if I remember right, the original design was straight, and DEP refused to permit that, so these are on an angle so that as the water builds up, it does let water go over the top of it. So, so those things in the design can be looked at. The Janeway, we do match the height that's there today. In the end of the day, the final fix, those would get raised up, and whatever height the levee wall is on both sides, that's what would get established. The other thing that has to happen in town, depending on timing and what design the council's good with, and it's going to take a number of years to build a project of this size. But there's 2 areas that are like bathtubs, Baldwin Street, in screw pumps. We have them in a few other communities. They were put in the 70s after Hurricane Agnes. They moved a tremendous amount of water quickly. So on Baldwin Street, you have to have redundancy in case you lose power. They have to have an emergency generator, but it pumps the water from the catch basin system and from what's falling in that area up over the wall that's been built. So step 1 on the lowest part of town is get the wall built, and then you have screw pumps below this building on the bottom side of town. You pump up over the wall, and that keeps the water in the stream. The second part of town, Baldwin Street, you do the same thing, you repeat it. There is some structures that need changed. The county bridge, there's a pier in the middle. It's problematic. If you run the hydraulics, it says it's okay, but experience tells everybody here, just what we just heard testimony, it's a problem. Stuff builds up in it, you gotta yank it out of there. So functionally, it's an issue, so that needs to be addressed. The borough is gonna ask again that the county replace that bridge so that it can pass the flood. Upstream, the other bridge is the same way, the one on Baldwin Street. It needs to go, it needs to be higher. It catches debris. When it does, it kicks the water out, and it goes in a very irregular pattern, and then you can't control it. You can't keep it within the stream. So if you spend the money on the walls, you got to spend the money on the bridge and then fix it. So that'll be within the study, and it is in the study. And then as you get upstream, you eventually get to where water can stay within the stream, because downstream it's getting funneled through, and it gets to the back channel. The back channel well always needs to be maintained. We just talked. When it gets a gravel bar there, it got to go away. We got to get rid of it, because if the gravel bar exists, it backs water up into the stream channel, the velocity decreases, and then it just gets worse upstream, and then the model doesn't work. So over time, you do always got to have a maintenance component, whatever you build, with each piece. And part of that is equipment or contracts, and just making sure you have those in place. So it is baby steps. It is very expensive. I do think it's pretty good timing to have a study completed, though. It doesn't help with the current flooding situation, but I think it's going to be a fairly good grant opportunity here to start this process and start a phase project. And I kind of look at this as one of those projects where if you can get phase 1 funded, the likelihood of getting phase 2 and phase 3 and then phase 4 funded goes up dramatically, because you get the first piece funded. You were very successful in the last 2 years in getting all these first projects funded, and the last piece of that is James Street. It's going to get constructed here in the next week to get that piece done, and that was really just a piece for access, so that it's immediate access when the flood goes away to get things cleaned up. You don't have that today. You got to move stuff, and it's difficult. So that should address that. We kind of have the same plan for Maple Street. That also has a problem where the water can back up, and you have a ramp there. That same system needs put in there eventually, but there's no reason to do that until after the downstream stuff is accomplished. So, but we have worked last year getting everybody's problems on paper. Went through the model, went through a bunch of different versions, a bunch of different options. We looked at a tunnel going all the way through, like we talked before. Those things work, but not as good as actually just permitting walls and widening the stream. It does have property takes along the way. There's a couple different versions within that study. It shows Baldwin Street being narrowed a little bit, showing Baldwin Street not being connected. But you'll have some options to look at as council to say which one makes the most sense for the borough. But I think what everybody observed is currently what the model would show us. And that's what, I had John who worked on the model, who works with Joe closely. He lives out in this area, and he came out the next morning. He looked at how all the water flowed based on the data we had on the storm event. It happened the way if we put it in the model. The water levels and stuff were pretty close to what we would expect. The water did basically back up on the Baldwin as was described. And not a through event, like if this rain came here, it was more of a backup event. And that's what the news showed. They showed the water stagnant was coming up. It was raising, but it wasn't running.
Time out. The water did not back up into Baldwin. The water came from a breach of 3 places along the creek. And if you want, I can show you a video to prove it. The water did not come from the storm drain. It did not come up from underneath.
But not,
I have sump pumps in, they never even turned on because
but
of
it
the
did come
mitigation
from
works.
Upper Baldwin all the way down like the last event. So,
No, I lived it.
I understand. So,
You're talking about Upper Bowl?
but it was just sitting.
I had the
After-
jet jack guys the next day tell me they were looking for a clog in the drains that they couldn't find.
But after,
There wasn't a clog in the drains. The water didn't come from the drains.
but after it breached, it just sat. The water didn't have
Where do you
anywhere to go.
expect it to go? There's no backflow preventer at the bottom of Jane Way because it wasn't put in properly. So
So there
the
is
water
one
couldn't
plan
get
to
up.
be put in.
But the backflow preventers in our basements worked and actually took the water away even when there was 5 feet of water outside. That's why I was amazed that I didn't even have to have my sump pumps turn on.
Yes, now, one thing on that too, the backflow preventers or cell phone, we have to make sure everybody knows, they need checked after events like this because the next event, they may not work, they need clean, yes. So there is a maintenance component to those also because if they're not maintained, if it happens rain event after rain event, then we do have issues there, so.
I mean, with all due respect, I don't know how many years we're talking about, but I'm sure it's not in my lifetime. My concrete coffin blocks worked, and they would get you somewhere until the grandiose plan could be done for a pittance of money.
I understand what you're saying, but I've also seen those get removed, float downstream, and go through somebody's house.
But I saw some down concrete blocks.
Yes, I've seen cement trucks float downstream in a flood. That creates a huge issue. So no disrespect to what you're saying, you're not going to see us engineer that and put that out on the street. It will be the solution that somebody uses with the amount of water that comes down McLaughlin Run, especially in a 200-year event. So we will agree to disagree that the borough would have that be their solution. It's not going to come out of us as an engineering firm. So if you want to put that on your property, by all means do, but that's not something that we're going to recommend to the borough.
Again, I don't look at the creek now for flooding, I'm looking at the street.
So,
Thank you, but, thank you. Okay. You proceed then for the regular meeting, please.
Under new business, item 1, a motion to approve the June 14th, 2021 regular meeting minutes as submitted.
So moved.
I'll second it. Mr. Galaducci and BJ. Mr. Snacker.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 2, a motion to approve the July 2021 bill list.
I'll move. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. A motion to approve the July 16, 23, 30th, and August 6, 2021 payrolls.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, a motion to adopt ordinance number 1022, an ordinance of the Borough of Bridgeville, amending its Code of Ordinances, Chapter 15, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Part 4, General Parking Regulations, subsection 15-402, parking prohibited at all times in certain locations, and Part 11, fire lanes, subsection 15-1101, designated fire lanes and tow-away zones to establish a fire lane and prohibited parking area in a designated location on McMillan Street.
So moved. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, a motion to authorize the execution of a contract by and between the Borough of Bridgeville and Traffic Planning and Design Incorporated for professional services, including the preparation of an active transportation plan in accordance with the RFP issued in the paper and the work plan submitted by this firm.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. For 6, this bid opening was on Friday after the agendas were put out. There was a number of bids received. The lowest bid received was from G. Solandro Excavating, LLC, and the amount of that bid was $151,795. Says 6, a motion to award contract to G. Solandro Excavating, LLC, in the amount of $151,795 for the Chartiers Park Stream Restoration Project.
I'll make the motion.
I'll move.
Second,
Second.
any questions on the motion?
I do have a question on the motion. Is that going to help anything with any type of flooding, or is that just the restoration of the banks right there?
No, this is the section of roadway and stream bank that's been eroded
No,
since Hurricane Ivan.
Right, I'm
Yeah.
right, but is there anything that we can do that will help with any flooding within that project?
No, it's the project's to restore what was eroded and put the road back. And then this also completes grading for the new playground that will go adjacent to shelters.
Have these guys done work for us before, or is this somebody new in the area? They do a fair amount of this type of work in the area. They have a number of contracts that in the past we've worked with them, so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, a motion to authorize the execution of change order number 6 for the McLaughlin Run Park improvement projects that resulted in a decrease of $16,336.86 to reflect field measured final in place quantities.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Galaducci and Nick. Any question on the motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
First.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Number 8, a motion to authorize the disbursement of $25,181.51 from the Capital Project Fund to Segretti Site Development and Paving Company for partial payment number 5 of the McLaughlin Run Park improvement projects. Motion? Second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 9, a motion to authorize the disbursement of $17,987.65 from the Capital Project Fund to Jet Jack Incorporated for partial payment number 2 of the Bower Hill Road Stormwater Improvements Project.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 10, a motion to authorize the disbursement of $9,907.08 from the Sewer Fund to Jet Jack Incorporated for partial payment number 3 of the backwater valve contract Phase 3 project.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 11, a motion to authorize the disbursement of $56,679.30 from the capital project fund to S&N Industries LLC for invoice number 1797 of the Bridgeville Municipal Building Roof Replacement Project.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 12, a motion a motion to concur with and direct the Charlotte West Council of Governments to authorize payment of $30,487.87 to Independent Enterprises Incorporated for partial payment number 1 of the 88 ramp and sidewalk improvement projects.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 13, a motion to accept and pay any commission due for the June 2021 real estate tax collector report.
Aye. I'll move.
Second.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 14, a motion to acknowledge receipt of the May 2021 treasurer's report.
I'll move. Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 15, a motion to accept the June 2021 police report.
So moved. Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Pepperson.
Committee reports. Administration. Virginia.
I have nothing this month. I'm going to leave that for finance.
Thank you. Any question for the chairman of the Finance, Mr. Verducci?
We had been going through a process, not we, Joe, has been going through a process on all the documentation that needs to be submitted for the American Recovery Act Fund, the funds that are submitted for Bridgeville. We were able to receive half of those, and to be honest with you, I couldn't believe it when Joe told me, but we already have those funds. So kudos to him on getting things moving, because to my understanding, there are some municipalities that are still waiting. So thank you, Joe, for your diligence on the paperwork. I hate to say it, but the school and borough taxes are going to be mailed out this week. You might actually have already received your bills. Yes.
Got him.
You got them?
Yeah.
The GEDF grants for the Byerville Storm Sewer Project and the McLaughlin Run Flood contract extensions were extended through the end of the year to close out the project. So, but the grants are expiring by June 30th, so we were looking to do that. Joe, did we get that extension?
Yes.
And looking at our budget to actual in regards to halfway through, we're doing pretty good. Obviously, the general fund is lower, but it's expected because the tax bills just went up. So we're doing well as far as the expenditures. We do have a couple of things down, which for obvious reasons, the mercantile and the business privilege taxes are down due to the pandemic. But the sewer fund and the trash fund are right where we're expecting them to be. So as far as the financials, we're right where we need to be after 6 months of the calendar year. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Verducci. Anything for our finance chairman? Park and Recreation. Joe, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm here. Real quick, on the Blackwood Run Park, almost completely finished. We rented out the first Shelbyville on June 19th, and the park is up and running. As far as I know, what I've heard, there wasn't any damage from the park in the park itself, so we got a little bit nothing there, as far as I know. As far as the Churches Park facility, we're doing the work on the street, the bank down there, plus the excavation work was paid for the new playground. Paving work will be done in next spring. I think we're trying to tie that in with the paving contract. Hopefully by maybe next fall, we'll start to Park Street. I would hope it will be done. That's all I have.
Thank you, Joe. I'm glad to see you over here. I wish you a speedy recovery. So we can have a couple of drinks. I'll see you, Joe. Thank you. Anything for parks? Joe's been in hospital, so it was nice for him to appear into our meeting. Thank you, Joe. Anything else for parks? Public works, me, actually, some of the things have been addressed already, some are like the roof and the parks and so forth, and all of you got the report. And I don't have anything else other than thank you all the volunteers for the help on the flood, and Tom will make a lot of good, he always does, he makes a lot of good suggestions. And some of those, it's in ASAP for us council to get together with the manager and council and the engineer. And I hope that we can do that soon. At least let's start, as Mr. Producer said, we'll start something. Thank you. Public safety?
Never no report, sir.
Honorary Mayor, Mrs. Copeland.
I received a call from Alan Pettit on Carroll Avenue. He said he was very impressed and grateful for the flood response. And on July 1st, I presented a proclamation to LaBella Bean for their 20 years in business. They were very happy, and fortunately for me, Councilman Shaselsky happened to be there, and he participated and took pictures of my presentation to Deb Massetti, who was surprised and very grateful for our acknowledging their presence in Bridgeville. From the Bridgeville Community Association, with heartfelt thanks, the Bridgeville 4th of July decorating contest was small but an overall success. We appreciate your commitment to add some fun into our Bridgeville neighborhoods. Congratulations to the winners of the 2021 contest. First prize, John Schneider, 681 Elm Street. Second, the Morocco family, 229 Hall Street. Third, Denise Sarnowski, 2235 Ramsey Avenue. If you have any recommendations or comments for future 4th of July contests, please let us know. They would be greatly appreciated. Again, thank you for adding to the community, and let's make next year bigger and better. Sincere, former Mayor Pat DeBlasio and the Bridgeville Community Association. Thank you.
Anything for the mayor? Thank you, Madam Mayor. Please, Chief Chad.
Thank you, Vice President. I provided a written report. If there's any questions, I'm sure I can provide answers to it. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Anything for the Chief, please? Thank you. Now we have here solicitor, Mr. Legal Person over here.
Thank you. I
Norman.
don't have anything to add in my report.
Thank you, sir. Anything for our solicitor? Water engineer, Kevin?
We did send in our report dated July 8th. The only update I have is Lee Fire Hill Road is scheduled for this week to be repairs. That'll be the last item for the paper. To be completed, the paving will be completed this year as well. There's a lot of big marks over there. Yes, there is. I just heard it was a little rough. Hopefully that helps. It's for sure.
I hope we can revisit you real fast on some of the things we discussed tonight. I certainly hope that we soon. Thank you. Okay, Fire Chief?
Yeah, last month we had 23 calls. Also, me and half of the fire department, I thank all everybody else for helping out with the flood, all the other fire departments that were called in, helping with the pump out detail, helping with road closures, and the cleanup procedure. Also ask the public to, when you're out there in these floods, just to keep in mind of everything around you, and just some of the problem areas, like I said, the trash rack, they like, people like to gather, just be very cautious, be aware, try to stay away from it, because God forbid something does happen, we'll need another secondary issue. So just try to stay away from the areas, and be courteous to everybody out there, because we're trying to do the best we can to get the town as safe as we can, everybody evacuated, process cleaned up as soon as we can. And that's all I have.
Anything for the fire chief? Thank you. Southbridge EMS. Mr. Miller. Not anywhere. No, okay. Okay. Library, any representative from the library? Ms. Copeland, you have anything from the library? You usually have some for the historical society. Here, the next. Okay. Anything, anybody from parking authority? When are we gonna put some pressure on parking authority to, even though they send us some of the papers, to have a representative over here, or have a quarter, 2 times a year, have a meeting with them. I've been saying this for years and years and years. They never happen. I mean, it's very important that we meet with them a couple times a year, just in a formal way, public and so the question to be answered, and the things happen every day with their raising the money and this and that we find out mostly from the resident, and we don't find out from them. I think it's very improper what they're doing. But anyway, let's try to have a meeting with them, with council and the public, open formal meeting. That's all I can say. Bridgeville Planning Commission, Madam.
Well, you have my report from
Yeah.
the June meeting, and outside of the fact that we're coming up with we're having another meeting July 26th, which everybody's welcome to attend, because I think it'll be interesting. But that's it.
Mr. Tomer, you have anything to add to it?
What she said.
Thanks.
Are you doing it a Zoom meeting, or are you?
No, live here.
We're like, same format as council.
Yeah.
You have the option.
Borough Manager,
Beyond my written report, just a reminder that the household hazardous recycling event for computers, TVs, paint, and what have you, is August 7th at the fire station. So we encourage the community to take advantage of the event.
thank you. Anything for Borough Manager?
I have one thing. Joe, kudos to you in regards to giving us such a detailed report of what happened. These are just things written down that we can look back and say, all right, what can we do differently? So thank you very much for putting this together.
Mr. Chairman, are you still there? Anything from you, sir?
No, again, I apologize for having attendance, but thank you all, and Tom, your heartfelt comments about what you're going through down there. Every one of us are here to do what we can to help future events, prevent future events. So, we appreciate your eye on that situation at all times and sharing the information about these events that we painful was. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. New business, anybody?
I do have a few questions. Didn't really get the opportunity to ask questions or engineer earlier. I know we had a lot happen on July 7th, a lot of opportunities for things we could fix, things that we can recognize that went well. Several members of the community have brought things to my attention, and several of them are here that brought it to our attention today. So I do thank you guys for coming in. There are a lot of concerns that we can expedite with simple, like some people would say, Band-Aids. We appreciate those opportunities to see what those could be, as far as not just looking for those 5-year, 10-year, 20-year programs, $20 million programs. We need things done now. We need the opportunities to find those. Breaching on Baldwin Street is unacceptable. Breaching this unsealed walls on Maple Street, to me, is unacceptable. Not finishing a wall on Maple Street, unacceptable. I know those are figured out when you do your job properly, and I know you put a lot of effort and your team puts a lot of work into it, and I do appreciate that. But these are people's lives continuously. This is my life. This is this borough's livelihood. Our community's crying, and they continue to cry. We need to start looking at quicker routes to help our community members, as opposed to pushing them off 5 years, 10 years. I know it took a lot of effort by everybody sitting up here, Joe Cowher, Lori, Mike Tomer, former council members, former mayors, but we are looking like a dump site for water from our surrounding communities, and I, for one, am not pleased. Thank you.
Thank you, young man. We all sing the same song, don't we? Any other business? Make a motion to adjourn?